Hello everyone, welcome back to another TierMaker ranking list. Today we're ranking all of Studio Ghibli's films for the majority. There might be a couple of recent ones that haven't come out yet or were so new that they're not on this list. But overall, I hope you enjoy this and hope you find a movie that you haven't watched that I'd recommend. All of these are phenomenal. Not all of them are ones you could watch over and over again. Some of them are just watching once and that's completely fine. Others you could play on repeat over and over and still enjoy it the entire time while learning something new. Without further ado, let's get into this. Our ranking is as listed S, A, B, C, and didn't finish. We'll get into the didn't finish. Usually I haven't watched, but I've pretty much watched all of these. So first and foremost, Castle in the Sky. That was a very good movie. Comparing to some of the beginning films, this is definitely... I really enjoyed. I mean, Ghibli, I enjoy the art style, especially that period time, but I feel like it was an A, if not a low tier A. Obviously, I'm going to rearrange my top 5, my top 10, and so on. I don't think this is missing any, but who knows. From Up on Poppy Hill, what a quiet... the story is kind of interesting. I'm going to try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but there's a twist in this one, with a twist in it. And I thought it was very enjoyable. It's definitely one of those where like I could just put it on TV, put it on repeat, or put it on the DVD and go at it. In our household, we've actually I'll say I could watch this more in Castle in the Sky. Now you're asking, how are you ranking me personally? How are you? It's a 3 process. It's the movie, its meaning. Did the movie do what it said it was going to do, regardless of how it ended, good or bad? Oh, they all died or they all lived. Did the message of the movie come across fully? Regardless if it's artistic and you have to think about it, or you have to watch twice because you didn't see the other part actually happen, your mind was over here and not there. Regardless of all that, what was the message? Is it an anti-war theme, as Grave of the Fireflies is, telling the horrifying, aftermath of all these different actions from themselves and other people? Is it replayable? Could I watch this more than once? That's huge, because I really love watching movies. Life is beautiful because unlike a movie, you can only really live it once. I'd argue though that you could, by all the different stories and aspects of life and memories from other people that you do and don't ever know. That itself means that life is infinite. While our lives are limited, whether it's minutes or whether, or at years, decades, after a while we die, we pass. Our first death. Our second death is when people stop talking about us. And nothing is more poetic or beautiful than that. It's like art on a dry erase board. I've been watching an artist do all this art on a dry erase board, and it's so refreshing because at the end of the day, they wipe the board clean, and all that art that was there is gone. And that is just like life. So refreshing, so invigorating, so inspiring, and then it's gone like a candle in the wind. And so those are the three parts. Replayability, did I enjoy it? And then overall, did it get its message across? What did the message, even if I had to watch it twice, did it at least get the message out? The Grave of the Fireflies is one I did not finish. I've tried to watch this like 3 or 4 times. I get 15-20 minutes in, if that. Nope, I can't. Just the overall message is and not that it's a bad movie. It's a phenomenal, very thematic, heavy story and a heavy message based on real life. There are some tweaks, obviously, from the actual real life inspiration, but life is too beautiful and it's tough. It is definitely one of those I'd like to watch it once, but having read the actual book, the memoir of the survivor, I feel like that's enough. But for Studio Ghibli to say, hey, we want to adapt this into an animated film, bravo to Ghibli. Like, this was a story that deserved to be told, to tell this atrocity that occurred. And yeah, so I applaud them for that. I just literally could not finish the movie. I could not. Every time I've left the room or I've changed the channel, I just couldn't. My friend Slant Warren, on the other hand, is like, oh yeah, I watched it like 36 times, let's watch it. Anytime we mention Ghibli, we would do a watch party, and we've watched practically all of these. I think the latest one we haven't watched is Earwig and the Worm, but otherwise we've watched pretty much all of these. So much that I found a box set of all of these, all the discs, and gifted it one Christmas for my sister-in-law, who's big into Ghibli. Howl's Moving Castle. This and Spirited Away, we'll get to Spirited Away in a second, are two movies that I really love. In the area that I live, the greater St. Louis area, Southern Illinois, there's a store brand called Schnucks, SCHNUCK. And they had at one point, there's also a smaller one then called Save-A-Lot. They had these smaller, and it kind of generalizes. If you look at the map, you can kind of see where I lived when I was really young. With my dad's grandma, she would take us, say, hey, let's go rent a movie, or hey, let's go to the park, let's, out and about, or see stories, movie, and all that. And we'd go to Save-A-Lot, and they had like, hey, you could rent movies. And so we'd go in, and I was drawn to Howl's Moving Castle. This wizard and this girl and this adventure, and I was so enthralled by it, and I watched it, and I was hooked. I watched it again that same night. I was like, hey, because my sister got the movie, I got the movie, and my grandma just was doing her thing, crossword puzzle books, or calling a friend just to catch up with, a relative or something. And I'd watched it. I said, hey, you guys really need to watch this with me, and it was so cool. And it was before I got into actually watching, Japanese films and knowing what anime was. But this was an animated film. I really don't feel like anime is really, but you could argue about that all day. S tier, definitely in my top 5. Kiki's Delivery Service is a refreshing movie. I don't love it as much as my fiance, Chips Ahoy, who has a Gigi, the little black cat. She and her sister, both love this movie very much. So Chips Ahoy and Dreet, really love this movie. I think it's a good movie. But top 10 probably, but I can see why people love it. I may not wholeheartedly love it, but I thoroughly enjoy the movie. It's fun, it's fresh. People aren't necessarily dying, unless there's a scene where someone's sick, we need to get a medicine, and then whoops, I forgot about that. Lupin the Third, that's one that I don't think we've ever watched. I'm familiar with the character. If there was, I think there might have been an anime. Like a short series anime maybe on Lupin the Third, maybe, and this was the finale, one of the films that came out after. I don't know. But I've not actually watched that. I know it says didn't finish, but potato. Let's see what else is. My Neighbors the Yamadas. I'm familiar with. I think it's like a cartoon. It's like a long running series cartoon. I actually haven't watched this. I've watched the trailer and it looks really funny and really engaging, lighthearted. But I haven't actually watched it. My Neighbor Totoro. That is a classic. It's got a cat bus. I'm surprised Chips didn't get a cat bus tattoo. I might just get a cat tattoo to match with her, Like, oh, you got Gigi. I got cat bus. Cat bus is so great, but Totoro. It's the movie. It's like, hey, here's the main story. But that's plot B. Plot A is that. And you're like, what? And they barely tell you the story. And that's some of the greatest stories are they don't tell you everything. They leave some of it not to imagination, but to let you reminisce and simmer on, hey, there's more going out on there. Like, there's so much more going out in these worlds, and they're telling you just a slice of life, and that's what I love about the slice of life. I wish there was more of it. But My Neighbor Totoro is definitely A tier. I really liked it more than Kiki's. This is where, like, the higher in the A, the more likely I'm to love it. S is I fucking loved it. Nausicaä is a great one. Nausicaä does. I like one of my favorite art forms is if you look at like early D&D, like it's got like the lich, like Daggerfall for Elder Scrolls has the look. That's in part. It's got like, it's got like the women and they're well endowed with huge tracts of land, but they've got the sword and they'll cleave you in two as fast as you'd look at them in the armor. But they're like strong, powerful heroines. You got these wizards and liches and all these, and the Conan the Barbarian. That like 70s into 80s like art style, like early 90s in a certain sense. They're slowly evolved into the anime that we eventually got nowadays. Is what I really love. And obviously we can have strong feminine. We can have strong heroines who aren't sexually like ousting themselves, like they can be fully clothed. Don't get me wrong, a lot of superheroes, let alone all the heroines in this are fully clothed and they're not sexualized. And I think we need to get more into that stance of not having to overly sexualize characters, because that's just, it gets into all this red tape area, and it's just it takes away from the beauty of the story itself, you know. Um, but Nausicaa, the art style has like that vintage like '80s story of like it's hard to describe because a lot of those stories in that time period was all the future could be beautiful or it could be deadly, dangerous, and post-apocalyptic, and this deals with that the fall of man and all these resources and pollution and whatnot. And it's so amazing. So it might very well be the split between. It might be top five, but once we get through this, I'll rearrange things. Ocean Waves, I have no clue. Ocean Waves, I have no clue. Is that the baseball one? Only Yesterday is C. We've watched this twice, and the way it cuts back between the past and the present, the lines blur, and I think that is very tastefully done in an artistic sense. That's what I was trying to say. But at the same time, it like because when you think about memories, you think you live the moment, and that creates a memory. But then from there, as you remember the memory, some things can become faded or blurred out permanently, depending on what you remember. Depending on how strong that memory was. Your first video game console may be the most memorable thing in your life because of how much you cherish gaming and all that. But then, like, what you ate for breakfast the day before in present may not be as memory. Like, I had, and when you finally remember, you're like, it was a bowl of bananas and cream oatmeal. I had 2 packets with water, hot water, woo. Versus that game console, being so excited to see a Nintendo 64 to the point that you're like, Nintendo 64! You know, like the kids, oh my god, Nintendo 64! You know. I'll have to do a story on that sometime. So yeah. Pompoko. Wow. That you get this cool story. It's the fight of, and I'm very much about conservation of animals, and sloths are dealing with that as urbanization, as land is cleared out for humans. The forests that they used, the jungles, are being annihilated, eviscerated, to the point where they're struggling to survive because mankind is overstepping their step. And by doing so, this similar story, these pouch raccoons, I think, I don't remember the exact name for them, are fighting back, construction projects and all this to try and save their homes, save their children's, because they're slowly dwindling population. And they eventually, at the end, well, spoilers. I really recommend watching this. This was definitely we'll put B. It's close to being A. I'll put it that way, but it's definitely like, Ponyo is such a great, refreshing film. So there's instances where watching the Japanese, the audio, the vocals, versus regardless of sub versus dub, Disney as of late they've really, so there's usually in the English, for a while there was 2 versions. You had the original English voice actors and then the Disney dub when Disney was like, hey, we wanna make this big in America for you, Ghibli. Ghibli like, well, here's a vision. You do anything with it? Here's a samurai sword to show that. And so a lot of the voice actors in Disney is phenomenal, but there are instances where I'm like, before Disney dub, phenomenal. I may be getting that backwards, but like yeah. So like, he had Liam Neeson as Ponyo's father, and all these actors and actresses are phenomenal. But Ponyo's top 5, such a good movie. I can watch all that. Ham, so quotable. Also, the top 5 is so quotable, and then the top 10 as well. Porco Rosso, there's technically a sequel, I thought. Or am I thinking of, I know Cat Returns has 2. Well, the Whisper of the Heart and then Cat Returns, but Porco Rosso is a very good film. I'd watch it over Pompoko. It might be, yeah, we'll do that. Princess Mononoke. Wow. I remember, so there were times where I've seen a few of these trailer-wise from award-winning Studio Ghibli presents Princess Mononoke, or something like that, either on VHS or DVD. I think, by the way, my favorite format of like anything probably is VHS. Overall, that I grew up on that whole like Blockbuster and rentals and Be Kind, Please Rewind. I grew up in like the 90s, so that like was a huge cultural like imprint on me. Something that's kind of lost. But Princess Mononoke is, I think it's It's A. I enjoyed it. There we go. That I'll have to rearrange a little bit. Spirited Away, A, hands down. I mean, yeah, no hands up, or whatever. Princess Mononoke is great, but Spirited Away is just, I could rewatch that so many times. There's just something about it where I feel like Howl's Moving Castle is my favorite for so many reasons, even beyond. I technically had watched Spirited Away before, but I didn't know it was the same company, animating, creating all these stories. Well, they didn't create them; they adapted them for the most part, for most of them. But to watch Spirited Away consistently, it's just the pacing is perfect. Howl's Moving Castle, oh, that right there has some moments where I could easily fall asleep to. Not because it's not action, it's not boring, but it's just like there's all this action and then really so intense amount of action and a tense amount of action and then it kind of ebbs and flows. It's kind of a jerky motion where Spirited Away truly is up there. So as much as in my heart I love Howl's Moving Castle, and I will always say Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away is just perfect truly. Tales, I can never remember, from Earthsea is a good one. It definitely feels like it's in the 80s. I definitely will say it's down at the lower B. It's a great tale, don't get me wrong. But you can really feel it. I don't know if it's, yeah, no, I was right. Okay. Secret World of Arrietty is such a great film, and it leaves at the end of like, it's imagine if your house, oh, something's been missing or misplaced. These little people that live under your floorboards. So cool, and it really thinks there's something in between us and bugs, because bugs are small versus we're giants. There's something in between. They're just like this, but they're smaller. Such a great, it's a great film. I'm gonna put that high B. That might be in the A's. We'll get to that in a moment. Is it The Wind Rises? Yeah, this was about a airplane designer, and it was and then the story of that was so good. It's right around Arrietty. I'm still trying to decide. This is tough. I'll put you that way. When Marnie was there, such a mind fuck of a movie because you're like, wait, what? It was enjoyable, but still, you're like, what? Whisper of the Heart. I remember the first one. The second one was like, wow. We'll put Whisper of the Heart. After Porco Rosso, before Marnie was there. Cat Returns is slightly lower. I will put that above Tales from the Earthsea. Tale of the Princess Kaguya, or the Woodcutter. The Tale of the Princess Kaguya is a movie that you have to at least watch one. If any of these that I would recommend to you, that one is the most beautiful, truly beautiful film of all time. I mean, like, out of the top 5, I gotta move some around a little bit. Here, let's move it like this. Is that how I want to put that? 10, Arrietty. 9, From Up on Poppy Hill. 8, Kiki's Delivery Service. Princess Mononoke. 7, 6 is Nausicaä. 5, Tortoro. 4, Tale the Princess Kaguya. 3, Ponyo. 2, Howl's Moving Castle, and 1, Spirited Away. Yeah. Just and the whole story of Princess Kaguya, the Bamboo Cutter, is the original title, but then they retitle it to be more catchier and more advertisement friendly for the general public. I'm starting to speak softly here, but that is just such a beautiful movie. Oh, the music, the art style, they really outdid themselves there. Yeah, that is my top 5, my top 10 right there. I definitely need to check out Ocho. There's a few on here that aren't on here, like Earworm and the Wig, which was like hit or miss for some people from what I've heard, but I don't care what reviews say. I'll still watch something if I intend to watch it. And then the one Ghibli Miyazaki's writing for his grandson that's supposed to be his final film, but who knows? I think he's still in a producer stance though from other things. But this is my Studio Ghibli tier ranking list. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, tell me your favorite Studio Ghibli movie. My top 5 is pretty much my favorite. Well, top 10 really. Those are just so great. It gets to a point where they're all almost amazing on their own because they tell different stories, and that's what's so beautiful about it. You know, it's different than a franchise like Harry Potter, where it's the same story. It's a one long story over different installments, versus this is different stories, different adaptations, interpretations of so many different things. But that's what's beautiful about it, is in life there are so many stories to tell, so many people to hear and listen to, that you owe it to yourself to watch all of these. Obviously, some of them, like Grave of the Fireflies, watch once if you can handle it. And then there's some people who are like, I watched it, no big deal. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here. I will see you next time. Check out the next recommended videos and subscriptions of me below. If you subscribe, it really helps, as well as check out the playlist of TierMaker ranking list. Until next time, my name is SlothFang, and take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.